We are back. 7 Days of Wisdom, episode 20, week 20. Aquaus Kelley here with you. Thanks for joining. And it is Monday morning, technically 1:34 a.m. This is a super late edition or early edition, depending on how you're looking at it. So, let's hop right into it. This week we will be discussing motivation, envy, and romance. Those three things. Motivation, envy, and romance. So, what motivates us, right? What drives us? Why do we do what we do? A lot of times in the past we've spoken about purpose, we've spoken about passion, but we've yet to really speak about motivation and drive and what triggers that. So earlier this week, maybe last week, I checked out a video and it was Ty Lopez at Nick Unsworth's Life on Fire conference, which took place in January or February, the top of this year, I believe. And he broke down how we can go about identifying what helps to drive us and motivate us toward our purpose. So our purpose is like the destination of where we need to go, or where we intend on going on the map. So it's the end of that GPS, right? We track out our GPS, we have our destination, that's our purpose. However, what motivates us is the type of fuel that we put in the car to get us to where we need to go, right? So what is the fuel that drives us? That is the essential question right now in regards to motivation. What is the fuel that drives us toward our purpose? So Ty mentions that there can be 4 primary drivers of motivation. Money-driven people. You know, money is the destination. Relationship-driven people. Marriage, those kind of things are the destination. Mastery, that's number 3. Like myself, we'll get into that. I believe I'm very mastery driven. I want to be the best at what I do, or amongst the best at whatever I choose to do. So mastery is the end destination. And then lastly, momentum, freedom driven people, where freedom is the end destination, the freedom to do whatever they feel they need to do. Some of these may overlap. Some of these may occur differently at different stages in our lives. But those are the 4 primary drivers according to Ty. Money, mating, mastery, momentum. The 4 M's. Money, mating, mastery, momentum. So it's important that we ask ourselves which of these 4 primary motivators drives us to compete. Competitive advantage. What drives us to compete? Also, what drives us, what sparks envy toward others? Because that's another way of highlighting and identifying what drives us and why it drives us. As Ty Lopez says, envy is the flashlight that illuminates our inner being. So envy isn't always a bad thing. It can actually be a good thing. Envy is the flashlight that illuminates our inner being, and we will get more into envy as well, because that is the second thing we'll be touching up on. But back to our primary drivers, what motivates us. And I mentioned that mastery is something that motivates me, mastery, status. And when I thought back on that, I thought back to when I was in the 6th grade. I remember distinctly when I graduated 5th grade into the 6th grade, I didn't get into honors classes. in the 6th grade, and I was kind of tight, you know. I was expecting to be in honors classes. I found out that I wasn't in honors classes, and throughout that entire year in the 6th grade, my number one goal, my number one motivation, my number one drive um, is to master whatever I had to master to heighten my grades and help me achieve my purpose. My purpose was to be in honors classes. That was my purpose. And what motivated me to do that was the sense of mastery. I had to master every subject that year. Math, science, history, whatever it was, I had to master it so that I can get good grades. So mastery was my primary driver towards achieving my purpose at the time, which was to be in honors classes. So I did that 7th grade. I got into honors classes because throughout the 6th grade, every quarter I was high honors. Every single quarter, 6th grade, high honor roll. By the time I was in the 7th grade, not only was I in honors classes, I was in 705, I remember the Blue Jays. I was in honors classes, but I also got selected to be a part of a 22-month extracurricular program designed to help students for the specialized high schools admissions test. So that's students who are looking to take the admissions test for Stuyvesant High School, Bronx High School of Science, and Brooklyn Tech High School. That was a 22-month program, and I got into it, but my purpose or intention was never to get into a specialized high school, so I kind of goofed around. You know, I messed around a lot. It was a fun program, but I didn't really take it seriously at all. But it did show me that I had the potential of what it took to be amongst the elite, the best junior high school students in the city, preparing to get into the best high schools in the city. So that did say a lot for me in terms of mastery, in terms of status, in terms of where I was and where I belonged. So that was a huge learning lesson for me early on in life. As fate would have it, anyway, I ended up going to St. Peter's Boys High School on Staten Island, and this was in 2001. I graduated 8th grade in 2001, and the second week of high school, was pretty much September 11th, 01, and the city was shut down after the Twin Towers was hit. Stuyvesant High School was less than a mile away. It was like half a mile away. So Stuyvesant High School, which was one of the specialized high schools, was shut down for about a month or so anyway, and all of the Stuyvesant High School students ended up going to, I think, Bronx High School or something like that, or out in Queens. So that whole situation was most likely a mess. And in 2002, my parents ended up moving to Piscataway out here in New Jersey anyway. So it's funny how things work. I always look back at that situation, like even if I was admitted to one of the high schools, like most likely I wouldn't have even stayed there. I would have transferred anyway. So yeah, life definitely works in amazing ways, you know, very interesting ways. So I thought that was a good story to share with you all. And let's really analyze what is your primary driver? What is your primary motivation? Mine is mastery, status. What is yours? Are you driven by mating? Are you driven by money? Are you driven by momentum? Do you just like to have the freedom to go where you want to go where you need to go? So yeah, I think that's very, very interesting. Primary drivers, motivation. What motivates us? So next, as I mentioned earlier, envy. Envy. What can we learn from envy? A lot of times we run away from envy. We don't want to feel envious as people, but it's an indicator of something that we may need to run toward, something that we may need to attack. If we're envious about something, that usually gives us an idea of what drives us in a way. And this relates closely to the last piece that we went through in regards to what motivates us, and what can we learn from envy. So Glennon Doyle Melton, who is an author, she was recently on Lewis Howes' School of Greatness podcast with his 5-minute Friday segment. Her segment was actually 3 minutes and 10 seconds, a little shorter, but she shared a lot of sensational insight in regards to how envy can serve as our professor towards finding our purpose. So think about it. Envy can serve as our professor towards finding our purpose. You know, we must ask ourselves the difficult questions, such as what makes us feel uncomfortable. All of our emotions are instructive. Bad emotions, good emotions, these are all instructive emotions. So when we feel uncomfortable, that usually means that we should act in a certain manner. And being aware of that allows us to go in the right direction, whether it's uncomfortable or not. Sometimes it takes being uncomfortable just to get to a place that is more comfortable. So we have to ask ourselves the difficult questions. Instead of rejecting envy, we should learn from it. It's simple, maybe not that simple to act on, but in concept, in theory, it's pretty simple. Just being aware of it, acting on it, learning from it, growing from it. Ty Lopez once again, and this is actually one of the quotes of the week, mentioned that envy is the flashlight. Envy is the flashlight that illuminates our inner being. It requires us to be brutally honest with ourselves, right? Envy requires us to be brutally honest with ourselves. The sooner we can come to this awareness, the sooner we will be in a better place, the better off we'll be. So that's what we can learn from envy, a lot. We can learn a lot from envy, and let's definitely go into this week with that mindset of, all right, if we have uncomfortable feelings, what is there to be learned from these uncomfortable feelings? All right. Lastly, a topic that you know I've always kind of shied away from is romance, right? I don't have much experience in regards to the relationship realm of romance, but in terms of, you know, love, self-development, getting to know yourself and love yourself, which is really the essence of being able to love other people and embrace other people, I feel, is like the center of it all. When we love ourselves, you know, we can find our match in life. So this past Tuesday, for some reason, this question came to mind, and the question was, how do we make room for romance? The reason why I asked this is, you know, living certain lifestyles, right? If you're a business owner, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a CEO, if you're a leader, your lifestyle's super busy. You have people pulling at you left and right all the time. So I'm like, all right, as I grow into myself, as I grow into my career, how do I make room for romance? So I asked myself this question this past Tuesday on the 15th. Like, that's a good question. Maybe I should Google it. So the other day, I think it was Thursday, I Googled it, and I had it on my computer. One of my homegirls actually came over, Makara, and, you know, we were just joking around, and I asked her a question, you know, how do you make room for romance? How do you think you can make room for romance? And she mentioned cohesion, really, cohesion within schedule. So whatever, no matter what you do, whatever it is, you have to make time within your schedule for romance, for those moments, right? So regardless of what you do, you're traveling a lot, you're doing this, you're doing that, there can always be time allotted to share with someone you care for, someone who's a special person to you. You know, working in entertainment, you know, just working in certain areas, we analyze it. My homegirl's into, you know, fashion, and she does events and all that kind of stuff. Once in a while I go to events, and it's like, yo, if you work in the entertainment industry, you know, you could invite people out to events. That's like work and pleasure at the same time. And it's always best that people see you in your element anyway, especially when it comes to romance and love. I feel that when people see me in my element, that's my best self. You know, to me, that's my most attractive self, is when I'm in my element. My particular element usually is more of an academic environment. I was actually out last night with one of my homeboys, Thomas. We were at a space Ibiza in the city on the west side. So, you know, we was out there, of course, club, girls, whatever, drinks. But that's not my scene. That's not where I'm in my element, because I don't drink. You know, I'm not about grabbing girls up or buying girls drinks. That's not my thing. My thing has always been more of the academic environment, educational platform such as this, where I'm really sharing information, you know, exchanging insight, things of that nature. So any platform that allows me to do that, a workshop, a seminar, a conference, speech, that's when I'm in my best element. That's when I enjoy meeting people and talking to people. So that's just an example for me. But where do you find yourself in your best element? You know, ask yourself that question. That's usually where, that's usually the best places, spaces to, you know, either meet people who you may be attracted to, or find people you may be attracted to, or, you know, just create that romantic setting of where someone else can see you at your best in your element. So I feel that these are all important things to discuss. And that's pretty much what I have to cover, you know. Spoke about envy, spoke about motivation, and making room for romance. So I'm sure as I learn more and experience more, we'll be revisiting these topics again in the future. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this week in terms of the topics. Romance, motivation, envy. Now let's get into the quotes of the week. Monday, March 14th. Sometimes youthful enthusiasm is the strength that can offset any weakness in regards to a lack of experience. Tony Dungy, The Mental Leader book. So yeah, when I came across this quote, the first thing I thought about was the job market, right? Everyone is always looking for experience. In addition, because everyone's always looking for experience, young people seem to get discouraged often. Where it's like, oh, I don't have the experience, what do I do? How do I gain experience if I can't get a job to gain experience? So when I thought of that quote, I'm like, that's it. This is something I would say in a job interview. You know, although I lack experience, I do make up for that lack of experience with my youthful enthusiasm. So you may want to use that line. Sometimes youthful enthusiasm is the strength that can offset any weakness in regards to a lack of experience. Tell the interviewer that. See what they say. Second quote, Monday, 14th again. We are what we eat, drink, breathe, and think. That's from Sean Stevenson, School of Greatness podcast. Definitely check that out. Lewis Howes. And they were talking about sleeping and health and the importance of sleeping, which as of right now, it looks like I'm only going to be getting about 3.5, 4 hours of sleep because I have to wake up in a few hours. But, we'll make up for that someday. The third quote, as the bonds of commonality grow, the walls between our differences dissolve. Tony Dungy again. And pretty much, we are more alike as human beings than we are different. And as we identify our common denominators, the walls between our differences dissolve. So it's important that we understand that we are more alike than we are different. And it's about getting to know others and what they represent, what they stand for, what they love, what excites them. And who knows? I'm sure that we can find similarities in our lifestyles. And those similarities are what lead to us being able to build relationships with people who we may have felt we never would have been able to build relationships with. So that's also important. Tuesday, the 15th again, if we have a dream that is significant, it takes a team to achieve it. Michael Hyatt. And this was in regards to leadership, 7 leadership principles. If we have a dream that is significant, it takes a team to achieve it. For a big dream, we need bigger teams. Alright? That's very important. Thursday, remove fear, have faith. This is something I thought of. Actually, it goes back to Marianne Williamson. Said the two most basic emotions, the two emotions we pretty much have are love and fear. So I thought, alright, love and fear, right? And instead of love, if we look at it as faith and fear, 2 F's. Faith, if we have faith in something, regardless of what the circumstances are, our faith is what gets us where we need to be, as opposed to having a fear and fixed mindset, as Ty Lopez would say, have a growth adaptability mindset where faith opens the doors for things that we just cannot see. Fear, however, doesn't do that. So I kind of twisted it and just thought, hey, remove fear and have faith. Forget the fear part, just have faith. If you have fear, move towards it and approach it with faith, and eventually you will overcome your fear. So remove fear, have faith. That's the meaning behind that. Saturday, reading exposes and introduces us to a multitude of perspectives that we just do not have the human capacity to experience ourselves. So I know it sounds pretty complex. Pretty much what that means is reading gives us things that we just don't have access to. That's what it means. Ty Lopez was talking about, there's some people who kind of have the audacity to say that reading is not necessary. Probably because they're looking at it from a perspective that experience is everything. You need experience. I guess it's kind of like being street smart versus book smart, where you can be street smart, right? But you can't be street smart everywhere about everything. You're only street smart about your experiences in the street. But if you read about other people's experiences, it's another way to educate yourself about other people's perspectives. So it's really good to have the best of both worlds, where be book smart, read a lot, get to know other people's perspectives, and if you have the opportunity and privilege to experience those perspectives in your life, then do it. I love reading. I read about a place, a certain destination. I'm like, I want to check that out in person. If I read about, a place I can actually go to, I want to check it out. It's the best of both worlds. Otherwise, reading at least, you know, sparks imagination in your mind. And if you're not able to experience that in person, you're not able to. But if you can, you can. However, if you don't read, you are very limited to just your experience. Our experience, our single-handed experience as human beings is very limited, you know? There's only so much we can experience. There's only so much we have the capacity to experience. That's why it's important that we open up our minds towards other things, and the best thing to do that is reading books. Second to that, well, maybe alongside of that is watching videos, and YouTube helps a lot, but reading is so essential. Reading is very essential. So that is that's probably my favorite quote this week. Hands down. Reading exposes and introduces us to a multitude of perspectives that we just do not have the human capacity to experience ourselves. Yeah. Almost finished. The chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. Samuel Johnson. That quote was actually used by Ty Lopez at the beginning of the What Motivates Us video. The links to these videos I'm mentioning are in this week's resources, which will be always on the bottom of this page. ilovehisambition.com. 7 Days of Wisdom, episode 20. It'll be on the bottom as this week's resources. So The Mental Leader by Tony Dungy is a resource. 7 Leadership Principles, Michael Hyatt is a resource. What Motivates Us is a resource, the Ty Lopez video. And then lastly, What Can We Learn from Envy is the fourth resource. Alright? So we have those resources. And the last quote to wrap it all up: envy is the flashlight that illuminates our inner being. Once again, envy allows us to know what it is that truly motivates us, that truly drives us, because if we're not driven, we can't go towards our purpose without having that driving motivation. So that's it. 7 Days of Wisdom, week 20, episode 20. What motivates you? What can we learn from envy? How can we make time for romance? How can we make room for romance? Why do we read? What is the importance of reading? So let's go into this week, have another impactful one. Aquaus Kelley, signing off. See you next week for episode 21. Alright? Peace.